Hi everyone, I hope you're doing fantastic. I'm doing great. You know, it's fall. I'm rocking all the fall colors and I hope you're having a good time. Today is Sunday. It's gorgeous outside and I wanted to film this video outside, but then I noticed that everybody was outside. So for me to be comfortable and in my element, I just wanted to be, in this little nook of mine, So anyways, you guys, as I mentioned, did I mention that already? Maybe not. In today's video, I will be sharing with you all the books that I read in the month of September. Okay? So if that's of any interest to you, please don't go anywhere. And we'll be right back.
Subscribe, hit that button. Let's grow together. Share with your friends through any kind of weather. Library without borders. We're reaching for the sky. Join the journey now.
Alright, Jambo, Karibu, welcome to my channel. My name is Chilanda and this is Library Without Borders. Okay, you guys, so as I said, I will be talking to you about all the books that I read in the month of September. Also, before I talk to you about all these books that I read in September, I wanted to know, how's your October so far? Have you guys shopped for all your Halloween decorations? Have you guys decorated your houses yet? Because I know in my neighborhood, people have them like by October 1st. Some people, it's like the last week of October. I don't decorate my house with evil stuff or cemetery things or anything like that, but I do put pumpkins because it's the season of harvest and things like that, and it's a pumpkin season, so I would have like a few pumpkin seasons in front of my door. So that's that. Also, I wanted to say to all my new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel and welcome. I noticed that sometimes I do forget to welcome all the new subscribers to my channel, and not because I don't notice you, simply because so much things, But anyways, welcome. And for those who've always been with me, I want to say again, thank you so much for continuing to, watch my videos, so thank you so much. So for the month of September, I wanted to read a total of 7 books. Okay, so right here, 7 books, and I read a total of, let's see, 9. I read 9 books. I have no idea. We'll see, and hopefully I wrote some notes because I don't even remember. Okay, so let's start with Breaking the Mafia Chain. So this book, I think I had told you guys, I had started reading this book in August, but it took me literally 3 weeks into September, and I finished reading it in September, so I counted it for September. So Breaking the Mafia Chain by Annie Domingo was a good book. I think I rated it 4 stars right here. So 4 stars. And let's see the summary. So 2 sisters taken from the Dahomey Kingdom crossing the treacherous transatlantic ocean in conceivable states. One will end up in the plantation in the United States and the other in England and become a princess. So this story actually is the same story that I read at the beginning of the year. Remember the story, The Queen's Spade? So I don't have the book, but it was one of my anticipated book that I had read in January, and it was the Queen's Spade by Sarah Raleigh. Okay, and that was a YA book that talks about the story of Sarah Forbes Bonetta. As you heard my summary, it's about this African girl that was taken from the Dahomey Kingdom and brought onto England. That's when I first heard of that story in that book. So but this one, she took a different route with telling the story of Sarah Bonetta Forbes. As I mentioned, we followed 2 sisters, and the reason why I even like this story, because I felt like it was gonna give me the vibes of Homegoing, by Yaa Gyasi, with the whole 2 sisters, and it began like that. One sister is taken onto the plantations of the United States, and the other is taken to England. And first, their African names are Salimatu and Salimatu. Her name is Faith. So that's the sister who went to the United States. And then Sarah Forbes, I think her name was Fatmata. Was it Fatmata? Yes. No, Salimatu was Sarah, and then Fatmata was Faith. So Salimatu was the girl that actually went to live with the queen in England. So the whole story is that this girl, Sarah Forbes, we're gonna call her Sarah Forbes, but just know that her African name was Salimatu. She was gonna get sacrificed by the king. You know, King. Y'all know the woman warrior with Sarah Viola Davis. What's the king? That king guy. You guys, the name escapes me, but this king was gonna sacrifice Sarah Forbes, and then you have this explorer Englishman who saves her, right? And it's during the 1800s. At that time, that's when England kind of abolishes slavery. So the man whose name was Forbes, who saved Sarah Forbes, he was part of the ships that were patrolling the rivers or the oceans and intercepting those slave ships that were still, stealing Africans. So he saves her, and then, brings her to England, and then there she is. Sarah ends up in Victorian England and becomes the goddaughter. She becomes the goddaughter of Queen Victoria. That's how her story begins. And the way she wrote the story of Sarah Forbes is that she is actually welcome in the Forbes family. She becomes siblings with these white children, and they accept her. The mom accepts her. And in England, the way she wrote the story is that even though people are very much like, oh my gosh, there's a black girl amongst us, she was still kind of accepted, she was still being seen as a human being. She was still treated equally, like with the siblings. At some point, she goes and visit Queen Victoria. She is there eating with Queen Victoria, and then she calls Queen Victoria Mama. She calls her Mama something, Mama Victoria or something like that. And at the same time, her sister, who lived with her in that Dahomey King, who's now living on the plantation, she's going through those atrocious things. While England is abolishing slavery, in the United States, they're still being enslaved there. And that's where Faith is. So one day she's like working there, and then she's actually on the plantation of this mistress and this enslaver, who the son of the planter is actually English. So he married an American girl, but he's actually English, the son of the planter. So what happens is that they need to go back to England. I forgot why they needed to go back to England. And then they decide that they have to take Faith with her. But Faith has 3 children, all by her enslaver. Okay. And then long story short, they do go to England. And then the only thing with England, as I mentioned, is that they don't have slavery anymore, right? So Faith does not read. She doesn't understand. She can't read the paper. So one day she's in the household once they arrive in England, and she's doing the work like an enslaved person. And then this white maid is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Do you get paid? And all that stuff. She's like, get paid for what? Like, she's get paid for labor. Like, she doesn't understand. And then that maid explains to her that, slavery is no longer legal here, and her mistress can actually get in trouble if they find out that she's still, enslaving. She still hasn't, slaves working for her. But if she still has slaves. So long story short is that what happens now, Faith decides to do something about it. So while in England, she meets this man. Okay, he's very white passing, like he can pass for white. Like he's a colored man. He can pass for white. So they struck up a conversation, and then he tells her about this whole thing that's happening about abolishing. What do I have a hard time saying? Abolishing slavery. So he talks about all the work they're doing, and he talks to them about these abolitionist people and all these things that are happening in England. So she wants to go there, and she wants to do something, because her kids stayed in the United States, somewhere in South Carolina or something, and she wants to get her kids back. So when she talks to this guy, something happens to them, like a love relationship flourishes between them, and he promises her that he has to go somewhere, do some things, but he's gonna come back for her, and together they're gonna go to Sierra Leone. I think that's why the place they're gonna go to Sierra Leone, and then that's where all Africans who are free go and live. Whatever. Obviously, she has nobody. She has nothing else. But at the same time, she also is aware of her sister. She wants to find her sister. She doesn't know that her sister is in the kingdom of Queen Victoria. She has no idea. But there comes one time, and I feel like the author did that on purpose. There comes a time where they were all going to the museum. So her was going with the common people, because when the queen and her carriages and all of them travel to museum, they cannot mix with the commoners, so the queen was there with Sarah Forbes Bonetta, and she was the only black girl in the company of the queen. So she's there, and then Faith was Fatmata goes to the museum as well, and then she sees the black girl, and she's seen the black girl as well in the newspaper, and then she seems to think that she looks like her sister, and it could be her sister. But then even at the museum, they sort of pass each other, and they never cross. Like, they never meet. So anyways, the story was good. It was interesting. Like I said, it gave me I got a little bit of what I was always looking for into my slave narrative books. It's like getting the size of the Africans who remain on the continent. When these people were being taken, what about the Africans that stayed on the continent? So I got a little bit of the life of Fatmata and Salimatu back in the Dahomey Kingdom, the way their traditions, their cultures. The author kind of talks to you, the reader, about their beginnings, how they had a life, how they were just normal people, regular people, until that fateful day when all these, enslavers came, pillaged their villages, killed their family members, and they were chained, taken to the boats, and, only to be separated, the two sisters, and only for them to have different paths, So obviously, this book was thick. At times I found it a little bit slow. That's why it took me so long to read it. But, other than that, like I said, I like the story. So before I conclude the summary of this book, let me just read you a few quotes. Gizo. There you go. Like, I just opened the page. So it was King Gizo. And I think you guys actually hear about him in the woman, what is it? The woman warrior that Viola Davis movie. So it was King Gizo that was trying to sacrifice Salimatu. Oh yeah, here I'm just talking about, I guess I tapped this just to sort of point out the fact that there were these other Africans that were working with these enslavers, and that's what it talks about. King Gizo was very popular in trading human cargo for other goods and stuff like that. Oh, also each chapter, she has like these kind of sayings. I think it's is it equal language? Some kind of African language. And at the same time, certain chapters, you will see that she has verses. Let me just find one. I like this one, a description. This is just a conversation among two black Africans, right? It's like, so what do they look like then? He said they are men, but they look like osses, white and raw. In the sun, they go red like cooked meat, and they have a nasty smell. That's true. They were describing white people. So you have one chapter here where she puts a proverb right here. For those who know their Bibles, even laughter, the heart is sorrowful. She has a lot of chapters where she has these sayings and verses. I do not suppose you can get the bush out of them, no matter how much you change their outward appearance. And this happens when, obviously, Sarah Forbes is in the court with all these Englishmen, and they're sort of looking at her like with inquisitiveness, like they're trying to study her, you know what I mean? And then there's this man in the Queen Victoria's company who makes this comment about, because Sarah Forbes was getting dressed in those English attires, right? And then he just made a comment about, like, no matter how much she changed her appearance, she's always going to be African, you know what I mean? And at some point throughout the book, you see that Sarah she's very self-conscious about her Africanness. You know, first of all, when they have to do her hair, because she's very young, right? I think she's 9 or 10. She's very young when she's brought into the kingdom of Queen Victoria. They have to brush her hair, so her hair is like nappy, coily. They didn't know how to take care of it, and there's only white people, and there's no other black people, right? So there's that aspect, and then there's like, you know, her skin tone. She's black, and you know, she's trying to navigate this new world. There was the language barrier, but she was taught English by the man Forbes during the ship while she was traveling to England. He taught her a bit of English, so there was a little bit of that English barrier. At some point, she does trying to escape because, you know, she's also trying to find her sister. Both sisters are looking for each other, but they just never. What are the likelihood? Even in this story, even though she tried to create a fictional story around the true story, she still couldn't even make that happen, that the two sisters actually ever meet. So, but anyways, you guys, one last quote and then we're gonna conclude this. I just tapped this one because that's when I hear about like Sierra Leone and when slavery was abolished. So remember the guy I was talking to you about that met Faith and was telling him about everything that they do in order to, like, you know, abolish slavery. So he's the one who's recounting his story, his life story, and he says, my father went to Sierra Leone twice. First in 1811, 4 years after the Parliament of the United Kingdom prohibited the slave trade in the British Empire, making it illegal to purchase slaves directly from the African continent. So there you have it. But anyways, you guys, I can go on about this book, but it's a full story. It's a good read. Like I said, it starts a bit slow, but you know, once you get into the story, it's gonna sweep you up and then you will be lost in the story in a good way. So that was that. So next I read The Woman on Number 3. So that was a free audible. You know, you guys know that I like to read those free audibles sometimes, those thriller. So The Woman on Number 3 is by Rebecca Colamosi. The story is about a family who moves in a new home only to discover that things may not be as they appear. Soon after, Clara begins to hear things and noises in the house. At the same time, Josie, her neighbor, becomes obsessed with her daughter and husband. So my review. The story was interesting enough. At times, I thought that there were ghosts, especially after finding out the history of the home. There is a twist at the end I didn't see coming. It made for an easy thrilling read. So as you said, there's the stories about Josie and Clara. Clara moves to this new house, okay? So they're shopping for a new house, and then they see this beautiful house and it's on sale for like a very cheap price, and they're like, what's the catch, you know? But then Clara is just so overexcited, and then when she makes an offer, they accept. You know, she moves into the house with her husband and she has a cute little blonde daughter. And the same day, same night, they start to realize that, you know, things begin to fall apart. You know, the water is not running properly, creaking noises are happening and things like that, okay? And then, you know, day one, okay, they attribute that maybe to like the house being a bit older and needing repairs. Days go by, there's still all these creaking noises, and at some point she starts to see that there are certain writings appearing on the fridge. You know, little things you put on the fridge there, like little letters that you know, that what's the English words? You know, one day she notices that there's a writing on the fridge, and there's only her and Josie, and her husband is not there, and she's like, who wrote this? So she talks to her husband about it, and her husband is like, you wanted this house, you know, like maybe you're too tired, maybe you're just hearing things. And he's like, no, like you know, somebody wrote this and all that stuff, but like he doesn't know what to believe. And the only thing as well is that there's the neighbor Josie. Josie's very quiet, she looks very delicate and all that stuff, and then but she gives the creeps, you know, like Clara can tell that there's something off with this girl, but she doesn't know what it is. And at some point she comes to see Clara and basically welcome her to the neighborhood, and she's like, oh, sometimes, you know, I can babysit your daughter if you want and all that stuff. And she's like, no. Just to shorten this thriller, the thing that made me feel like there were ghosts is because like her daughter would wake up with nightmares, and she's like, mommy, there's somebody in the house, but there was nobody. And like the way the story was written, it didn't feel like it was a ghost story, but like I was like, so what's going on, you know, what's happening? But once you learn the history of the house, what happened to the house and why the house was cheap, then you start to figure things out. You're just like, oh, okay. And Josie, that neighbor, she's not as innocent. Like at some point, you know, you see her getting cozy with her husband. And at the beginning of the story, you hear the narration from Clara and Josie. And Josie was like, because I listened, right? And she's like, well, yeah, when I saw them move, I wanted her family. I wanted her kid, her husband for me. Creepy. But like I said, it was an interesting story. I rated it 3 star, okay? So I would recommend. And then next, I read Things Past Telling. That was this book, which I actually enjoyed. Things Past Telling by Sheila Williams. So what was this story about? Let's see if I remember. I hate when I don't write my notes because now I have to read a little bit of the synopsis for me to remember. So Miriam, Priscilla Grace, is a midwife born in West Africa around 1758. She has been gifted various names, but her birth name is known to her alone. Things Past Telling is a remarkable historical novel that charts Miriam's journey across an ocean of years, as vast as the Atlantic she crossed when she was only 11 years old. Miriam survives capture, enslavement, and a brief stint as a pirate's ward, where she is both a spy and translator. Okay, so Miriam, oh, you guys, I actually love this story. I think it was actually a 4 star for me. You know what was happening when I was listening to this on Audible. I was actually getting into crocheting, you know, so I was listening and I didn't actually have time to write my notes. But essentially it's the story of this little girl who is obviously taken from West Africa. And what happens is that when she's taken, her ship is actually intercepted by another ship, and you discover that ship was a pirate ship, and then she becomes, like the story says, the ward of that pirate. And what happens is that they will go on all these adventures, you know, where she would become his, how do you call it? I know I said ward, but like almost his assistant whenever he was doing transactions with other either enslavers or people in, you know, different islands. She was there to see, to let him know, like if he was being lied to, he was being crossed or anything like that. Like she was there, she was his assistant as young as she was, and she loved every moment of it. And once they were done being in the waters and it was time for them to be on land, he actually had a family somewhere in the island there, and she noticed that it was people of various different regions of, you know, the African continent. And the way this pirate took her, he took her like his own, you know, like his own kin, because he recognized, I think they had a common language between the pirate and Miriam. So that was helpful. So she was welcome among his family. They welcomed her. And then the most important thing of her journey is that she was to be a midwife. That's where the journey began. Oh, now it's coming back to me. Okay. She witnessed a birth on that island. And then there was this Spanish woman. She also had a story, this woman. She called Miriam and told her, come, you're gonna start witnessing like all these births because you're gonna become a midwife, you know, in your later years, but like beginning now. And her first birth, she almost like she ran away, and then the lady was teaching her, talked to her, and she actually foretold her future. And I don't know if any of you remember, I had posted something on my post there about, you know, if you would want your future to be told to you. It was during this time when I was reading this book, and yeah, her future was told to her by this girl. Of course she didn't believe, but what could she say? Long story short is that something happened, a raid, the islands become, you know, is attacked, and everybody runs away, and she will never see that pirate again. She is taken by whoever comes to attack the island. She's taken to be brought onto this. It wasn't a plantation, but it was like a sort of plantation, but it was run by Irish people. So those Irish people are like, they're looking for a midwife. And Miriam comes, she's like, I can help you. She's still like 12 years old, 11 years old. Oh, and by the way, before I even move on, something happens to Miriam. Remember, she's 11. She's actually going to become a mom. Not going to say there. I said too much. I just wanted to say that That was the word. That was bad. That was terrible. So anyways, she goes and she tells him that, you know what, I can, help you. And then there's this woman, this white woman. She's trying to give birth, but she's screaming. She's not like she's not giving birth properly. Like, she's suffering and something is wrong. And then she's like, listen, I can help you, but this woman was not having it. She's like, I don't want you, little nigger. Nah. But then somebody comes like, if you want to give birth, this is all we have. This is the midwife that we have, so you're going to have to accept her. Long story short, that's how her journey begins into this midwifery adventures. And after that, unfortunately, she's going to be sold away. And the Irish people who actually welcomed her didn't believe in slavery, but they also needed the money. So unfortunately, she was bought by a plantation, like an enslaver who had a plantation. And there is where she lived most of her life, where she had how many children? She had a few sons. She actually married on that plantation, and she was able to actually help a lot of people give birth. So Miriam was very popular in her region, in that area. People borrowed her for midwife services, but also for healing and things like that. And I remember there was at some point in the story where she met this lady. Okay, I'm gonna conclude, you guys. But it was a really interesting story. So she met this lady, and this lady was like, come, I'm gonna show you something. So there was almost a underground railroad aspect to the other half of the story. And the way she is approached about it is, like I said, this lady talks to her. It's like, oh, I have, this happening close to this mountain. I need you to help me. And then she goes to this mountain, and then, at that time you couldn't travel without either having your papers from your enslavers saying that you could walk from this location to this location. You have that permission of that paper. So she had the paper, and she would go to the mountains, and then she saw this one person that was like a runaway. From that point on, she was helping runaways. They will go to the mountain. Some of them went to Canada, some of them were there, and she was doing that while fearing for her life. So she went on a lot of adventures. And one thing also that was really, really hurting was that was she sold? I think her children were sold. And she stayed alone, and she fell in love. But the only thing with that man is that he was already in love with somebody else. And unfortunately, there was so much things in this book. But it was a lot of things. So I feel like I'm going to tell you the whole book. But what I want to say is that the way the story began is Miriam sitting down, talking to her children, and telling her life, how it began. Hence how she started her life from 11 years old onto all the plantations she was sold to, and how she lost a couple of husbands, a couple of children, and how she survived it all, how she helped runaways, all of those things past telling. Is a great book, and it's a 4-star, you guys. I'm so sad that I didn't take notes. The end was really very sweet. It was so sweet, because remember how I told you she lost her sons? She's obviously very old at the beginning of the book when she starts to tell her story, and there's a reunion of some sort. I can't tell you who she sees, who she meets, but it gave me tears, and I was like, oh my god. It was very emotional. But yeah, so that's things past telling. So next, I read All My Mother's Lovers. Okay, All My Mother's Lovers, you guys, I didn't like this book. I'm actually gonna unhaul it, okay? But this book, I'm gonna put the category here, it's actually very LGBTQ and plus book, okay? So that's not even why I didn't like the book. It was simply the relationship between the character here and her sibling. So the story is about, what's her name? Maggie Cross. So Maggie Cross is actually, she's Jewish. Okay, she's American, Jewish. And the story begins, I think I had read you guys, the synopsis of the book, is that her mom dies in a car accident. And what happens is that obviously she has to go and prepare the funeral for her mom. The only thing is that her mom and her had an estranged relationship. They didn't get along. So the way the story is now told is told in dual times, in the sense that obviously the beginning, the mom is dead, but now you will go back throughout the story and hear the mom's life basically through her own words. And then the current times is Maggie obviously getting ready for the funeral and this uncovering all these things about her mom. So obviously the title says All My Mother's Lovers. Okay, so I thought, I don't even know what I was thinking. Anyway, so she discovers that her mom left all these letters for all these men, and she's like mad, you know, can you believe you're a daughter and then you discover that your mom had all these lovers while she was married? Okay, so now she goes to find out who were all these men, okay, by dropping all these letters that her mom left for each and every one of those lovers. Okay, and she never reads them, which I appreciated. So the only thing was that the only part I liked was the part with her mom, when we went back in time and discovered why her mom took a certain lover, how it began, what were the premise. Okay, and you will understand why she did it at the end. But while it's happening, you're just like, so you have this good husband, you have 2 beautiful children, you have a good life, so what the fuck? Why are you cheating on your husband, you know? But then you see the relationship that she has with all these men, and with every single one of them, she told them that she will never leave her husband. But she appreciated the times that she was having with them, and unfortunately, all of them wanted to be with her at some point. She does date a white man, a black man who was Nigerian and Jewish. Interesting. Isn't that an interesting mix? But anyways, and then just another white man, and then I think there's like 4 letters. So yeah, and yes, and one thing you also discover why she had her and her mom didn't get along. So obviously she's a lesbian. Okay, so that's one thing, and obviously her mom being Jewish, you know, it goes against their beliefs, you know. But then you can just imagine for her to discover after her mom is dead that she had all these lovers, and then she's like, well, what the fuck? Why would she judge me for being a lesbian when she was the one cheating on on my father? You know, she's mad about that. And like I said, what I didn't like about the book was the way she talked to her brother. Let me just read you guys a few lines here. So Maggie here, she said, when Maggie first came out, there were those kids at school who asked her why she hated men. She didn't answer them because they didn't deserve an answer. But she thought about the question. Did she hate men? No, she didn't. She hated male dominance and the patriarchy, of course. But that was different. Men on an individual level, she didn't hate. How could she, when she joined in the boys' games all the way until puberty, disliking the girly things she was supposed to like back then? She simply wasn't attracted to masculinity, though she adopted some of it for herself. I've always wanted to know. Yeah, it goes on talking about binary. She talks about her father, how it's possible to hate men, but yet she has a father. A whole thing there. Yeah, it's the way she talks to her brother. Fuck you, Ariel says. Dad needs us. Yeah? Well, so does mom. I'm taking care of the letters she wanted to send. Send, idiot. Send. What? There wasn't a mailbox closer than fucking Greenfield? Yeah, okay, well, maybe you're not curious, but I want to know who these guys are she's sending letters to after her death. So, people who are important to her, right? Dudes. All of them dudes we've never heard of before. You think that's normal? I don't. When are you coming back? I don't know. I'll probably stay in Sacramento tonight. Jesus fucking Christ. Don't take the Lord's name in vain, little brother. And then this is a little brother. Fuck you. Straight to fucking hell. Right here, y'all. Can you read it? Focus. I just, and this is how the whole conversation between the brother and the sister was. It was so much swearing, even the way she talked to her mom. When you see the relationship, when you go back to reading her mom's sides, it was just the way she talked to her mom. It was so disturbing to me. And then there's some point the way she talks about like she's going to meet one of her mom's lovers. I think it was one of the final ones. And then she's like, everything about this place looks disgusting to her now. The people pulling the levers of the slot machines, the drunk idiots high-fiving each other around a craps table, the absolute and painful straightness of it all. Yes, she thinks, this is the thing about Vegas that she doesn't like. As fun as it can be, it reeks of performative straightness at every turn. Each macho man and girly girl walking in hand, each painful high heel and golden cufflink, each and every bit of this place is like the 1950s gone wild, with straightness being the only public presentation allowed. The only thing was that, do you understand? It was like, she had such an anger, whether it was about straight people or men or her mom or her brother, the relationship with the brother. It was just like, okay, like, I get that you're not into men, okay, but could we not be so like, you know what I mean? Like, but if we was straight people talking like that, and I know they're still happening, but you guys understand, right? It would be like, whoa, calm down. But like, that's all it was. She was just like down talking straight people. Like it was just too vulgar for me. She was too vulgar for me. And I understand there's a time and place and in a story where the character needs to be written that way. I get that. But like, it was a lot. And then this is how she talks to one of the men. So did my mom end up liking pussy? Anyways, I'm done talking about this book, you guys. I didn't like this book. I actually didn't like it. So I think it was a 2 out of 5 for me. Next, When We Were Birds. So When We Were Birds is by Ayanna Lloyd Banio, and it says Darwin is from the country, goes to the city to find a job. He finds one in a cemetery. There he becomes familiar with the grave diggers, but they're not as innocent as they appear. Yejide is blessed with a kind of power that allows her to see and speak with the dead. She, in other cases, helps them cross over. And my review: in the midst of everything, Yejide is grappling with the death of her mom and her power. Darwin discovers that the other gravediggers are crooks, and one night it all comes to a blow. We also discover, real quick, the connection between him and Yejide. I like the strong message of powerful women. That's what I wrote. So there you have it, you guys. I did like this book. It was 3.75 for me out of 5, and essentially that's what it says. You know, this guy Darwin is I forgot the year, but like it's like the 19 maybe 50s 60s, you know, those years. Can I see the year? It's in Trinidad. And what year is it? It's not saying the year, but I feel like it's during those times. So life is lifing during that time, and he needs a job, right? So he goes to the cemetery, and that's the only job he can find. So his mom, I think his mom or his caretaker, somebody, I think it's his mom, she's not okay with it. Okay, she's like, a cemetery? Like, why are you going to work in a cemetery? Like, why? But that's all he could find. And at first, you know, it pays him the money. But then he starts to realize that the man that he's working with are doing something with the bodies, and they're not supposed to be doing. And one day, the way he meets Yejide, I think he sees her in his dream. I don't know how, but he sees her in his dream. And the connection, the way they meet, is that she lost her mom and she's going to the cemetery to find a plot of earth to bury her. All right. And then there's that first meeting with Darwin and Yejide, and the connection, the attraction is instantaneous. Okay, that's that. And also Yejide's side is that she is seeing the ghost of her mom, and it's like they're not getting along with her mom and her twin. I think her mom and her twin both died. Like, so anyway, she's seeing the dead and she's talking to them, and then she's like, okay, what should I do? What's going on? Okay. And then she has all these powers of seeing them, but I'm not sure that she's able to really harness them and really use it in a way that is helping these ghosts, you know, including her mom. So her mom insists that she wants to be buried beside her sister. So she goes and talks to Darwin, and Darwin is like, well, I understand what you want, that the family members might be together, but then if we dig here, there may be like something here already, so it might be whatever. She's like, the ghost of my mom will not leave me alone. She doesn't say that, but like the mom will not rest unless she is buried beside her sister. So long story short, like I said, one night is that he sees them, Darwin sees these men one night in the cemetery doing foul things to a body, and in order to, I guess, take things, right? And they see him, see them, and they're like the next day, well, if you say something, blah, 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 you're gonna be in trouble. And then one night, something happens. He tells Yejide, like, they're gonna go away, okay? But before they go away, certain things have to be done. So that night, when they were supposed to go away, he gets, accosted in the cemetery, and boom, things go there, action, things happening. And what I've loved was a bit of magical realism that the author gave to this story. So she didn't know, like, she's at her home, but then she feels something, like she's dreaming, she's sleeping, and she's like, something's going on. And then she brings the rain, the storm with her to the cemetery, and boom. So anyways, it was a beautiful story. I love the connection with Darwin and Yejide, and I love the message of the author, as I mentioned, of strong, black, powerful women. Okay, so I would recommend 3.75 out of 5. Then I read this book. It was Patience is a Subtle Thief by Abi Ishola Ayodeji. And I listened to the audio because, you guys, I'm into crocheting and it's so hard for me to actually open a book, which I'm really sad because I love my physical books. So what did I write about this? So Patience and Chike Emeka Cash, all young students living in Lagos. It's 1993 at the dawn of the new election. Nigeria is a restless country. Patience, a daughter of a rich man, is on a journey to find her mother. With all the obstacles in her way, Patience will have to use illegal ways to obtain her wish. My review: I enjoy following each character on the perilous journey. It made me question if these young people were justified to do what they did, because the government had failed these young people. The pacing was fast, and I found myself laughing and curious to find out how it will all end. So that was my review. So yeah, so Patience. Patience is, like I said, the daughter of a rich man, and I've already summarized everything in this, so you know my video is already long as it is. But the only thing was that, as I mentioned, it was at the dawn of the new election in Nigeria, and some of you may know, African countries, after going through their independences, every leaders that followed after were just crooks. They were just not good for the people, okay? And yeah, so these young people are going to school, but they don't have a job. Like, they don't have ways to make money. And you find them living in these derelict ways, in these like dilapidated school or little apartments, trying to make a living. And they're young, they study, they went to school, but they can't find a job. So now an opportunity comes where they will have to do certain illegal things. You can just imagine drugs, whatever, and bring that money to like the mafia of, the version of mafia in Nigeria. And then Patience is like, why? What do we need to do? What do we need to do that? And the thing with Patience is that she was living a good life, but it's the thing that her dad is mean. Her dad is like those overbearing parent, and he kicked his mom out of the house. So she witnessed that when she was really young, and she's tried to ask the dad, where is her mom? He won't tell her, and she's like, I need to go find my mom. So every lead she goes tells her that she's somewhere in the United States, but now she needs the money to go, and that's where you find her mixed up with all these young people who are mixed up with all the wrong people, trying to find a way to get this money, each for their own reasons. And Patience, for her, it's to get the money for the ticket to United States to go see and find her mom. Things will happen. there is death that will happen. It was action plan. I really liked the book, so I would recommend. It was a 4-star out of 5 for me. It was really good. All right, you guys. Then I read They Were Her Property by Stephanie E. Jones Rogers. Now, this book, I'm gonna summarize the book real quickly. I'm gonna read you guys what I wrote, but I actually want to do a different video where I talk about They Were Her Property, because this is the book, y'all. So this is actually a non-fiction, okay? So it was pretty intense, but what I have to say is that after reading these slave ships, I have to say any slave narrative books that I'm reading after, I'm immune because the slave ship had destroyed me. When I told you, so that means everything else, I'm literally reading it stoically. Like I'm emotions locked somewhere. Like my emotions locked. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna read this book and I'm not gonna let myself be affected by it. But I got things to say. So we learn of Southern women, white, who were actively involved in the slave trade. They participated in auctions, in punishing enslaved women, men. They separated women from their infants so that the enslaved women would breastfeed their children, who in turn would become enslavers. Those children would become enslavers. Just try to wrap your minds about that. You breastfeed that guy only for him to turn around and start beating you at some point when he's like 18 or whatever. Anyways, they bartered with enslaved people for certain services. My review. They held fast to their way of living with slavery even when emancipation and the abolition of slavery was declared. White women used all kinds of brutal methods to subjugate enslaved men and women. Accounts of enslaved people told the length at which white women went to resist and uphold slavery. And then I'm like, favorite character? I'm like, most of the black people. Most of the black people in the story, of course. So I'm gonna talk about this book in its own video, okay? So I didn't really rate this book because it's not, how do you want me to rate this book? Next, The Girl Who Left by Jenny Blackhurst. So that was another Audible, free Audible. And it says, Abigail has disappeared on the anniversary that Elsie disappeared 25 years ago. Catherine's dad is the one responsible for the crime. This fact has affected Catherine's life and forced her to hide her true identity. But on the day Abigail is missing, Catherine decides to join the search. My review. I was pleasantly surprised at the twist. I shed a little tear for once. The story did make me question if I would be one to do what some of the characters did in the name of love. And I said favorite character, the dad. Real quick, the dad is in prison because he's apparently the one who's killed Abigail. And 25 years after, there's a little girl who's disappeared. Catherine, who was with that little girl the day she disappeared, or the day the dad killed the little girl, has been, living with that guilt of having a dad who's killed her friend. And so basically you're following her, trying to uncover the truth, trying to get to that little girl before they have like another missing girl type of case. And she will go back in the town where she used to live when she was young, and at the home where she used to live when the disappearance of Abigail occurred. And that's when things will basically unfold. And my gosh, when I say the twist, I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. I was like, the dad, he did that. You guys, I can't tell you. You just have to read it. It was good. The Girl Who Left, it was good. I liked it. It was 4 stars. I've never rated a thriller 4 stars. It's always been 3 or lower. Next, I read My Monticello by Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. Okay, I rated that book. I actually didn't rate the book. But I'm gonna rate it here with you. But I did write my summary here. So Donesha, Knox, and Devin are fleeing town, First Street. That's where they live. They end up at Monticello, where we learn of her connection with Thomas Jefferson through Sally Hemings. She was 14. They are being attacked by a group of racist people. Okay, so she was 14, meaning Sally Hemings was 14 when she gave birth to, I guess, her first child. That's why I put it there. So my review. At the beginning, there are 5 short stories. I was a little taken aback with the style of writing. Each short story had a social commentary regarding race history. My Monticello was interesting. Ma Violet is a strong character. So is Danesha. Ma favorite character, Ma Violet. Favorite quote. A moral depravity, brutal to black people, and a means to make tyrants of white people. That was, I think, something that Thomas Jefferson wrote. I think I have the quote here. But essentially, that's what the story is about, you know. Danesha is running away with her boyfriend, who's white, actually. And he's the only white person among these group of people who are running away. And they find themselves in this museum where they take shelter, basically. And there, it's very short, as you can see. It's very short. But there you learn of the story of Sally Heming and the connection to the grandmother of Danesha, Ma Violet. And as they are running, unfortunately, because they were running away, they didn't get to take everything they needed to take, right? And they find themselves, you know, in need of food, of shelter, and Ma Violet in need of her inhaler because she has asthma. So yeah, so you learn about Sally Hemings, her connection to Thomas Jefferson, and the people around Danesha all have a story of their own. There's at some point you meet an Indian family who comes and tell of their story of why they ran, how it all began, how one of the students was like, you know, approached in a vehicle and all that stuff. And at some point, Danesha's grandmother, she's suffering, she's not gonna make it. And they've been there, I think, for like over a week or something. And Danesha decides that she has to go back to town to First Street and grab that inhaler for her grandmother. Unbeknownst to her, the people who were attacking them are still there and patrolling the streets. So she goes there with one of her best friends who's black and her boyfriend who's white and another woman. So they're driving. So the black people are put in the trunk at the back of the truck, and then the other woman and her boyfriend, I think that's the name, Knox, is the one driving the truck. So unfortunately, when they get close to First Street, something happens and they're being attacked. And while this is happening, you also hear, like I mentioned, the social commentaries. You know, she talks about how their skin is cause of everything that's happening because of their skin tone, because they have to hide in the trunk while the white people can just drive, you know. And at some point they have to run away, they have to make haste, and they see a group of people, whites, who are approaching, like all of them with like all guns and, you know, all kinds of, what is it, other stuff, machetes, knives, anything, you know. And they're like, we don't want trouble. And they're like, we don't want trouble either, we need help, like we need you guys to help us. And they're like, no, we can't help you, you know, you need to go back from where you came from. Okay, so I'm just gonna read you a few quotes here. So here it says, the needle digs into muscle, and the researchers mark how much sweat leaks from pores of the watchers. They measure who gets the job, the loan, who gets the lion's share of salted dank empathy. They mark which colored human-shaped targets get shot by police in study after study, no matter how innocuous the silhouetted objects they cradle. So here she talks about how her mom didn't have money, how they grew up in, like, you know, poverty stuff. I should say that our family did not need a call from Monticello to tell us we were Thomas Jefferson's descendants. The story of our connection, to sit there to do homework while mama ran a hot comb through my hair right off the stove's red hot coils. Two more quotes. As you can see, it's just the stories surrounding Sally Hemings, but it talks about the current events, you know, the police brutality, you know, all these social commentaries. I like this because there was another individual in the group. His name was Papa Yaya. He said he fled violence in the Republic of Congo. He'd waited for years in a camp in Tanzania, surviving on almost nothing, not even enough clean drinking water. And I just highlighted that because it mentioned somebody from Congo. Anyways, Yeah, again, there are stories here told about Thomas Jefferson, a freed former slave who attended Jefferson's auction to try to emancipate family members. Isn't that complex, that story of Thomas Jefferson, who owned enslaved family members and people? There's a conversation happening with Knox, who's white, and Danisha, and he's saying, all I'm trying to say is, even in small ways, doesn't one person always have more power than another? And I love this part here because Danisha is now going through a month. She's asking herself, I felt so shaky then, but I kept standing. I was thinking, what did it mean if I loved Knox? Did it mean I hated something in myself? Or was the dark feeling in my gut something older, something outside of me and him? Anyways, you guys, so like I said, it was good. My Monticello, I liked the book. Like I said, it was short, it was interesting, it had history aspects in it which I like. So it's gonna be like 3.75 out of 5, right? So that's it, you guys. I think that's it. Those are all the books that I read for the month of September. So right, that's it, you guys. I know this video is long, but y'all know I like to read. I like to share my thoughts. I like to talk to you guys. This is the only time I get to talk to you guys. So please tolerate me for this long, you know. All right, you guys, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to like, to comment, to subscribe, and share, and I will see you in my next video. Ciao.